Save the Semantics, episode 210. It is May 9th, 2023. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit. Oh, fuck. About some shit. I just kind of dropped my glasses a bit there. I think it's good, though. Yeah, I think it's fine. I need new glasses anyways. Jesus, dude. These things are, crusty and musty as hell. Anyways, recording this a little early because I once again found the time, and I also wanted to record something kind of in advance, leading up to Tears of the Kingdom, because that's really the only thing that's going to be that I'm going to be thinking about, honestly, for this entire week. And I thought that maybe it would be kind of like a fun idea to look down memory lane and kind of talk about Zelda and sort of my experience with the franchise, and the kind of what these games mean to me and their sort of importance, because it is one of my favorite franchises, and maybe I've sort of touched upon that before, but I haven't really done like a full delve into what kind of makes the series special for me, and then also sort of my I guess my history with it, and how I started off getting into the series itself. And I thought that would be kind of just like a fun little thing to do for, I guess, this part of this week's episode, leading up to release and post release. I'm sure I'll have many things to say, so I just kind of wanted to dedicate a little time just talking about that. I'll just say today, this week is kind of interesting, I guess, to say. There's some things there's like a lot of things going on for sure. A lot of things in terms of playoffs, and I guess we have some things that I got to take care of in my own life and stuff like that. So it's like a whole bunch of shit going on at the same time. So it's but other than that, I'm really just wanting to put some time into just kind of relaxing when I can, and doing stuff like kind of miscellaneous things, like just kind of finding the time to do this podcast, that sort of thing. I feel like I have a decent schedule right now, and I really want to kind of take advantage of it. So yeah, that's kind of where my headspace is this week. I found the time. Now I'm willing to kind of put in the time to do some extra things like this. But I'll start off by saying, when I first got into the series, my first console that I got as a birthday gift was a GameCube. I was playing Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest on the PlayStation, PlayStation 1 and 2. But those were my mom's consoles. GameCube was the first. That was my console. And the very first game that I got on there was Mario Party 7. I think it might have come with I think it came with a GameCube package, something like that. It came with the console. So Mario Party 7 was the first game that I ever got. First Mario game that I ever played, which is pretty wild. And I enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure I put in quite a lot of hours. I'm part of. I do actually kind of want to revisit it sometime, just because it's been so long since I've played it. But I just remember I remember getting frustrated in the party games, and having fun with the mini games, but the actual board game itself, I remember getting frustrated because there's a lot of RNG and randomness involved, and so very similar to kind of a Monopoly, or I guess Parcheesi, I guess, where there's certain elements with the board where if you land on a square or space, you get, you lose coins and that sort of thing. So I I enjoyed it for sure. Uh, but I think my first game that I really kind of grasped onto was Wind Waker, and I got that. I don't remember exactly when I got that game, um, but that was my very first Zelda game. It was my very first like action. I don't know if I can. I don't know if you can really call it role playing, because role playing is so like broadly defined nowadays. But I guess you could really, you can call it a Zelda kind of an action role playing game, right? So that was kind of like the first that I got introduced to, because up until that point I had been playing like traditional, quote unquote JRPGs, Final Fantasy, um, Dragon Quest, turn based combat, right, where it's not really action focused, but it's more of, a menu system that you work with to everything is menu based, right? You got your party, you got to equip certain items and that sort of thing, and when you do battle, it's turn based, right? So you kind of take your time, unless it's like Final Fantasy where it's like ATB, whatever. So I was not familiar with, an action oriented game like Zelda for first person, right? Not first person, but single player. And so it was kind of, I was actually having some difficulty with it. It's funny to just like think back. Um, the very first like sequence, or one of the earliest sequences in the game, you're in like a pirate ship and you gotta complete this like rope mini course, something like that, for this pirate named Nico. And I just remember getting so fucking frustrated when I was younger. I forgot how I was like, I don't know, 6 years old. And dude, I got so fucking frustrated. Like I was like throwing a tantrum and shit. And my mom was like, all right, you just gotta stop playing right now. This shit is not, we can't do this right now. This is just like, you're getting way too into this. And she ended up completing the fucking stage for me, which is like embarrassing for me. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, okay. Like after she told me that she beat it like after I went to bed, which is so funny. Um, and it was like I was both like thankful and also just like kind of embarrassed. I was like, damn, I couldn't even fucking do this shit myself. Like my mom had to do it for me. It's just like, and Wind Waker, by the way, is probably the easiest Zelda game. You know what I mean? It's very much catered to beginners. It was catered to me, really, and I still could not get past this fucking rope swinging um, section of the game, and I was just like struggling so hard with it. I just think it's really funny. So yeah, shout out to my mom for getting me past helping me get past that. But the rest of the experience, it was uh, it was like it was a really incredible experience going through this game and discovering the world and getting kind of familiar with the Zelda format. It's kind of funny. Zelda was, first came out, what, 1986. But this was the third 3D Zelda game. So after Ocarina and Majora, which I think is really interesting because it's that's not that many. You know what I mean? Like that's not that many 3D Zeldas. Like of course Ocarina was a huge smash hit and they built, kind of a base from that point on. And then 3D games kind of developed after, within the early 2000s and that sort of thing. But I think it's still pretty remarkable the kind of the status of this game, like how it looks, how it performs. The button, there's really only like 4 buttons that you really use within the game that are like I guess that you're gonna be using. You got like two item buttons. You got the A button for action and rolling, and then you got uh, you got the L bumper for shield, and then B for sword. Real simple shit, right? Um, so it's incredibly accessible for really any gamer. I feel like, or any introductory gamer. It was perfect for me. Um, I loved the hell out of it. I think just the art style, because I didn't know anything about Zelda at that point. I had no idea that this reiteration of Zelda and kind of the art style was considered controversial, right? Because it was a pretty pretty big departure from Ocarina and Majora. But it was perfect for me because I just really felt, I don't know, I was a young kid. Link was a young kid who was discovering shit on his own. So I very much I felt that I resonated with him a lot, and just kind of the trials and tribulations of you being kind of this, you being this um, adventurous kid and just going out and doing shit. I think it was perfect for me. And the art style has aged like wine. It looks great. Like I was watching like some speedrunners and some people play it. And I think it was like it was either Wii footage or Wii U footage. So Wii U might have been, obviously touched up a bit, but looking back on like the original GameCube footage, it still looks fantastic. I think it's just it's incredibly cartoony, and you could say like unrealistic, but I felt that style is really complimentary for the gameplay, for just the feel of the game itself, the atmosphere. It's incredibly lighthearted. It doesn't have, there's obviously the stakes of you having to save the world and that sort of thing, but it doesn't really weigh on you like maybe some other Zelda games do. You know what I mean? There's not that kind of harsh or darker tone that the N64 Zelda games have, or like Twilight Princess, right? Like it's just not. It's kind of devoid of all that. There are some moments where it's like kind of spooky, for sure, but other than that, it's very lighthearted, and it's bright. The sea, the Great Sea, is incredibly just vibrant blue and colorful. It's gorgeous. You know what I mean? And I my dumbass, I ended up fucking selling it, dude. I still regret that shit to this day. I don't know why I sold it. I wanted to make like a few bucks for some reason. I don't know what I was thinking, but I ended up selling my GameCube copy of Zelda. Um, and I'm still mad about that shit. You know what I mean? Because it's like GameCube copies of the game now are super rare and expensive, right? If I want to buy it off of eBay, and I don't have a Wii U. I'm not gonna buy a Wii U anytime soon. So it's just like I don't have a copy of basically one of my favorite games, right? Because when I was like younger, when I was like, I don't know, fucking like 11 or something, I went to GameStop and I sold it because I thought I was gonna recoup some cash to buy some other game. It was not worth it. It was absolutely not worth it. It's never worth. I don't know what the case is for now, but it is never worth selling games to GameStop. It never has been. And that's one of my biggest regrets. I swear to God, that is one of my biggest regrets to this day. Was selling a copy of that game. But regardless, one day I'll get another copy. You know what I mean? If they never port Wind Waker and Twilight Princess to the Switch, which I have my reservations on. You know what I mean? It's possible that I might just buy a Wii U. You know what I mean? And hey, there's Xenoblade X on there as well, which I also would like to play. So that could be something later down the line. Anyway, Wind Waker was my introduction to Zelda. Kind of a long spiel, I get it, but it was an incredible experience. It was a great first venture into Zelda and I guess that type of game, because it was just something that I was not familiar with up until that point. And I loved it very much, and that's kind of how I really sort of fell in love with the series. Uh, Later on, I eventually got to Twilight Princess, but I think before that I played Phantom Hourglass. Um, yeah, I played Phantom Hourglass, and I have some fond memories of it. I think it's sort of funny because like this, I also kind of have a sour taste in my mouth with Phantom Hourglass, similar to Wind Waker, because I actually never finished the game. I never finished it because I got to the last boss in that game. The two DS titles, they involve a lot of using the stylus and everything like that. Um, and the last boss requires you to kind of like draw like an hourglass thing in order to what is it? Uh, in order to defeat the last boss, and I for the life of me I could not time it right. And so I just kept dying and over and over again to this boss, and I never beat it. I don't know. It's like, I don't, that's another one. It's like, fuck, dude, am I gonna ever get around to, because I ended up, I think I sold Phantom Hourglass too. I'm 0 for 2 in holding copies of Zelda at this point. You know what I mean? It's like not a good record. It's not a good record at all. So yeah, I ended up selling it. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I have it in my collection. I'll need to double check, but I'm pretty sure I did sell it. Because I got so frustrated I couldn't beat the fucking final boss. Um, I could not draw that hourglass for the life of me. So that's just kind of a black hole in my sort of gaming catalog, in my Zelda gaming catalog, I guess you could say. Um, so it's just kind of there. I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna play through it. It wasn't really my favorite Zelda. Like, I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed the boat customization. Um, I enjoyed doing some of the dungeons, and kind of I got used to like the stylus controls and that sort of thing. But I think it might be a little difficult going back to it, because I don't know how well the stylus kind of gimmick holds up. Like, controlling your character by using the stylus, I don't know. I don't know how well that's gonna turn out. So it might be a little difficult getting back into that game if I ever do. But I did enjoy it overall, just despite some of the despite some of the, I guess, transgressions that I have with it. Not being able to be the final boss and selling it. But other than that, I think it was an enjoyable experience. I'm trying to remember if I played through Twilight Princess first, or if I played Spirit Tracks. I'm pretty sure it was Twilight Princess. Before that, um, Twilight Princess was, or no, hold on, no. Let's take a step back. No, I completely forgot an entire section. It's just my memory's all fucking wonky. No. Um, I had Wind Waker for the GameCube, but I also got the collector's, like, kind of edition of, I forgot, it was like GameCube collector's edition. This shit is super rare now. I don't know anybody who has it, but this has Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, which is crazy. It has 4 games in this shit. This is a crazy ass collector. Like, thinking about it now, it's like, wow, how did we get our hands on this? You know what I mean? Which is wild. I'm pretty sure, God, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure I still have it. If I sold it, I'm going to kick my ass. I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to beat the shit out of myself, because that was so stupid. Like, God, I've made some dumbass mistakes when I was younger. But, it was an incredible collector's edition for the GameCube. It had four in one. I played through one. I struggled with it because NES and SNES games are incredibly difficult. But you got Majora's Mask and Ocarina in one. Like it's crazy. You know what I mean? So I played. So it was after Wind Waker that I played through Ocarina. It got what happened was it was difficult for me because Wind Waker was is pretty easy. It's a pretty easy game. Um, but going into Zelda, you know, Ocarina of Time, it's a lot. You know, it's older. It's like it's 4 or 5 years older. So it's more difficult. It's less forgiving for me at least. Um, and I kind of struggled with it for sure. Like I was enjoying myself. I enjoyed kind of going through the dungeons and that sort of thing. But uh, yeah, I was really struggling with it. Uh, I got to, and this is not going to surprise anyone, but I got to the water temple, and I got stuck. I got stuck in the water temple. I basically I feel like it was like 1 or 2 years. What I think that's what it felt like. I'm pretty sure it was like at least over a year before I went back and finally completed the water temple. I had to look up some guides, and then I had to try to figure that shit out because I could not for the life of me understand where to go, where to find keys using those iron boots. Oh, it's I I know that there's kind of been, you know, there's been some dialogue about how the water temple is actually good and that sort of thing, but it's very hard for me. It's hard for me to kind of look at that way and think about it because I had such a miserable experience going through that dungeon. Um, and that's kind of a big. It's kind of a big reason why I haven't really. I mean, among other things, you know, time and there's so many other games that I want to play, but that's kind of been a big reason why I've sort of held off on replaying Ocarina because of kind of the dungeons and some of the jank with that. I also don't have like the 3DS copy, so if I played like the 3DS version of Ocarina, maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more, because I'm sure there's like a lot of accessibility options and, you know, quality of life updates. But I have not, after beating Ocarina once, I have not really gone back to it. I can't really say if it's definitely not my favorite. I appreciate it for what it is and kind of setting up the, you know, kind of setting the stage for the other 3D Zelda games, but it's definitely not my favorite. I think it's difficult for me to kind of go back to it, just because some of the gameplay mechanics I feel are a bit outdated. Um, I also it's funny. I never got Epona. I never got the horse in my playthrough. So I was always just running around in Hyrule, kind of like going from place to place if I needed to. If I didn't have the ability to like fast travel or whatever, like I had to like run around and shit. And that was hard, especially when it, you know, got to night and all like the Poes and other enemies started coming out. Um, so I again appreciate Ocarina for what it is, but it's definitely not my favorite. Uh, I for Majora's Mask, I remember starting a playthrough of it and getting really confused as to like what the hell I was supposed to do and getting stuck. I got really I got kind of frustrated in that kind of that first sequence where I was like stuck as a Deku, and I was like, I just give me back my human body, you know what I mean? Just take this fucking mask off of my face, and like time started to pass, and I was like, we're running out of time, and I think like the moon crashed into, you know, uh, into the earth, and I think it was like game over, and I was like, oh damn, and that's game over, you know what I mean? Like you can't, you have to restart from the beginning basically. So I was like, I don't get this. I don't understand this at all. So I didn't try to play Majora's Mask again until much later on. I borrowed a copy of Majora's Mask and I played it on the 3DS instead, and I had a pretty good time with it. I think it was really enjoyable. It was really I understand the passion that a lot of fans have for Majora's Mask, for its kind of themes and darker narrative and that sort of thing. Um, and I like that. I think that's cool. I think giving Zelda a bit more depth in terms of its narrative, storytelling, some of the character motivations, I think is interesting. And I enjoyed playing through it. Um, I guess going now this I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. Twilight Princess. I love Twilight Princess. I think Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are kind of my favorites because I guess a lot for like nostalgia reasons. Playing it during like my childhood, and really sort of developing a I don't know, developing kind of a connection with the series. Um, Twilight Princess is just like an epic game, man. The cinematics, the music, the kind of the plot and how it develops, and the the I guess the world building. I think that's all incredibly well done, and it's one of my favorites in the series. It's one of my favorite games. I think it's pretty easy to pick up, and there's just a lot of memorable moments from that game. Whether it's like Wolf Link, the fucking what is it? That one that one item where you're like on a spinning top. What's that thing called? I forgot what that thing was called. And then the boss battle. Those are very memorable moments, just like key gaming moments that I can kind of that I fondly remember. Um, and Minna is a fantastic companion. I think she's an incredible character. There's just so much going for Twilight Princess. I feel that it's hard for me to really think about. I don't know. Of course, no game is flawless, but I really there's just a lot to appreciate with Twilight Princess. Just in terms of, I think this not this, but this is one of the games where I started to really grow and appreciate a well crafted story, um, and stakes and characters that have that go through trials and tribulations, that have emotional depth and have some there are things that you as a player can kind of resonate with. I think that's kind of what this is one of the games that really kind of solidified that, and that's kind of one of the things that I've started to really not started, but that I realized that I'm looking for in a game. You know what I mean? And so I really appreciate that about Twilight Princess. I think that the cinematics and everything like that. I think it really adds on to the experience. And I think as a whole, this game really is really impactful in just kind of its whole presentation. I think. It's a great game. I love Twilight Princess. Next one that I played was Spirit Tracks. I'm pretty sure. Another DS title. I really enjoyed this one. I think I have fond memories of it because I completed it. You know what I mean? Less frustrations. Oh, another thing about Phantom Hourglass. I also really struggled with like the Ocean King Temple. I just I just really struggled with kind of the difficulty of that, and I just did not I did not really enjoy the experience of having to go back to the temple over and over again. And you do get that with this game as well, but I feel it's a bit less difficult, and that's probably why I felt that it was much more to my speed, and I sort of enjoyed. I didn't mind going back to kind of the same thing over and over again. Um, and it also I think is because this game came out, a bit later down the line, and I was also I had a bit more experience with games and stuff. So it maybe that's sort of why this game, I felt that I didn't struggle as much playing through Spirit Tracks, but I enjoyed Spirit Tracks. I'm very much echoing what other people have said about how Zelda is portrayed in this. I think this is probably one of the best portrayals of Zelda in the entire series. I wish that later titles that she gets featured more as a companion character. I think that would be really great. I feel that having her present throughout the entire story is really just it you know, I don't know, like it helps add to her character. You feel like she's there with you, like she's there with you the entire time, and I think that's really great. This is really the only game that I can think of. This is the only game in the series that really does this. And I wish that, again, other titles kind of did that, because her name's in the freaking title of the series. You know what I mean? But yeah, I enjoyed Spirit Tracks. I was watching some other videos, you know, doing kind of like a retrospective on Zelda games, and I I haven't really revisited Spirit Tracks in a long time, so I think that one of the kind of the criticisms that I've seen is that the game, there's a lot of downtime between like traveling from section to section with your train. So I think that part might not have aged very well. But I haven't played the game at all in a minute, so who knows? Maybe my experience is maybe they hold up if I replay it again. But I think that, again, I was less frustrated with the game mechanics this time around for the DS title, and I didn't really, I don't know, I just didn't struggle as much. There were certain moments, like there's a moment where you had to blow into the mic. I always hate doing that shit. Like it looked like front one, if you're bringing out your DS into public, like you look like a fucking idiot. Like it's just he just doesn't look like, he's like, what are you doing? Oh, he's playing Spirit Tracks. I don't like those gimmicks or mechanics. I'm not a huge fan of that. But other than that, I think it was a pretty enjoyable experience. I liked it quite a bit. And again, I think it helps having Zelda be an actual character in the story, being very present and active. I think is a good thing. The next title that I played was Skyward Sword. I was swept up in the hype for Skyward Sword. I was at that point in my life, I was just a full blown like Zelda nerd. I had a subscription to like Nintendo Power, and so they had I'm pretty sure I still have the edition as well, but I still have the cover of Link, for like one of the, it's like pre-release of Skyward Sword, just like talking about, you know, just like the world and just like the everything like that. I kind of want to read it. I need to find that magazine and read it, because I was fully in that shit. You know, I was really in that hype. I was really hyped up about it, and I remember during that time going to like IGN and GameSpot and all these other gaming websites and reading up on, you know, Zelda and all that, and I was fully immersed into it, and I was fully buying into the fact, like a lot of people were giving this, a lot of publications were giving this game like a 10 out of 10. This is the best Zelda game ever, and shit like that. It was pretty wild thinking about it now, and I was fully in it. I really bought it. When I played the game, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really fun experience. It is not a 10 out of 10 for sure. It's definitely not. It is not. I don't think it's the best Zelda game. But I still think it's a really well done game for sure. I did not run into any trouble with motion controls. I felt that those functioned fine for me. I I enjoyed the relationship between Link and Zelda. I also enjoyed the story, even if it is a bit bare bones. And looking back on it, it's not the most, it's not the most developed. It's not the most complex. It's not really. It's even really not the most interesting. But I was into it, man. I was really into it back then. And again, this is most of these games I really haven't replayed since. I mean, I've played. I've done multiple playthroughs when I had those games back. When I had the time, really. But I haven't touched them since then. So I haven't really. They re-released it on Switch, remastered it, whatever. Skyward Sword. I don't know if it's something that I'm interested in getting, because I did like multiple playthroughs back in the day. I really enjoyed the dungeons. I think the dungeons were pretty well done. I think they were a lot of fun. I liked the items and how they were used within those dungeons or within the world, really. Certain bosses I think were pretty enjoyable. It's I have pretty fond memories of it. Again, it's not the best Zelda for sure. It's definitely not the best Zelda. I totally get that. But I have pretty fond memories of it. I don't know if it's gonna be soured if on multiple replays, or if I'm gonna just be like, you know what, I still appreciate it for what it is. But I guess we'll see, if I ever do get to it again. But yeah, it's a good game. I think it's great. The music's fantastic for sure. I think that's a big up for Skyward Sword. And then I think what else? What else? Handheld games. There was Link Between Worlds. I feel like I'm probably gonna be missing some stuff, so maybe I'll touch back up on this a little later. But Link Between Worlds, really fun, really enjoyable. I don't really have that much to say about it, other than the fact that it's just fun. It's really easy to get in and get out of. There's not like a whole lot of I don't know. I think the item the fact that the items are all available to you is really cool. I think that's really fun. You can kind of just experiment with those and see what works. And I think it's just like a really short, fun, easy experience. Maybe not necessarily easy, because there's some difficulty there for sure, but it's not. I didn't find it necessarily too difficult. I think it's just a really well-rounded and just tight game for sure. And then that kind of leads up to Breath of the Wild, for me. So I didn't actually own a copy of Breath of the Wild until this year. I borrowed a copy of it from someone else. I also borrowed their Switch and played with it. And there's only so many things that I can really say that hasn't been said about Breath of the Wild already. But it's an incredible game. It's I've already kind of touched upon it pretty recently too, but it's just the even the smaller things, which might not have, like, we might consider it kind of small at this point, but like the fact that you could climb everything is crazy to me. It still kind of is crazy, right? Just the fact that you can really touch and go anywhere is incredible. I think that's like the biggest it's really the biggest draw for Breath of the Wild, in my opinion. Was just like the fact that you could go literally everywhere on the map. There was no invisible, well, obviously there's certain parts of the map that the edges of the map are gonna be blocked off, but there was no areas that you couldn't enter. It was all open, and you could do anything. You could walk through the desert naked, and you could die. You can do a bunch of shit. You could tame a bear. There's just so much you can do in that game, and it's really it's incredible, man. And that just makes me more excited for for Tears of the Kingdom. And just kind of doing, I'm gonna probably cut this off pretty soon, but just kind of going back and thinking about my experiences playing through this series, and sort of seeing my own, I guess, my own sort of tastes in games, and certain medium sort of develop and change over time. But that being said, like I still hold a lot of the feel, a lot of the ideas and concepts that I find really important in games. I still hold, I still hold today that I kind of carried from these games that I've played through. You know what I mean? So yeah, kind of a brief, not brief, but a bit of a extended sort of talk discussion on what Zelda means to me. I think there's a lot to really appreciate about this series, and I'm happy that I've kind of stuck along for this long, because there's just the possibilities are really endless, I think. And I'm just excited for what's coming up next, even after Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm gonna cut it off here. The next time you'll hear from me, most likely we'll be talking about the game, my initial impressions, that sort of thing. So, gonna cut here, and